Welcome to this wet January morning. It's not a dry January, not at all, it's a wet January. So, welcome back to my tour of props and artifacts. Now, what I've got here today is my own version of the T-21 heavy blaster that the Sandtroopers carried on Tatooine in Star Wars. This all began because a friend of mine bought a vac-formed version of this gun, which looked great, and we should have kept with it because it was very lightweight. But in those days, back in 2008, we both went, oh, it's too light, you know, it needs to be heavy. So I built two of these, and what was great is that all of the extra details that I added to, you know, create my own version of the T-21, I had two of. So it was quite cool to have actually built two of these exactly the same. So what I'll do is, the only thing one can do is get some close-ups of this. I don't know if you can see that there, but my one, when I built the barrel, the actual internal workings were slightly off center. So what I did was I put a massive dent here to look like the Sandtrooper had deflected the blow from a Tusken Raider, and that explained why the internal barrel was bent. Which is a bit shite when you think, because if it's a heavy blaster and it takes a knock from a Tusken Raider to kind of put it off centre, but who knows, a lot of later Star Wars kind of in-universe fiction has said about how the Stormtrooper stuff was mass-produced and cheap, so maybe that's the reason. Or maybe the Tusken Raider gave it quite a big blow, but it still fires. So, okay, what I'll do is, yeah, you know what it's like, you know what I'm like. I'm going to move towards here and pretend that I need to go this way whilst I press pause. I'm sure you're all used to this by now. So here we go, starting with the stock, and there's some Arabesh on there and a little marking that I decided was for the officer in orange. As we move up, we've got the Hengstler counter, like on the Stormtrooper blasters. We've got a redundant gun sight on the back there, pushed down. This little roundel here, I decided was obviously connected to this gun sight here, and that's how you adjusted the gun sight, by turning that. We put orange lenses on these gun sights for the harsh Tatooine sun. Got the trigger here, all the kind of guts on the outside. I particularly like that. That's the obviously the recoil mechanism, probably not the right word. There's actually two little plates of steel there underneath, so I specifically had two to make it look a little bit alien. Once again, our safety catches were in orange, just to add that alien difference. Couple of cooling fins there, and this little piece here which looks like armoured plating. For me, the idea was that there was some very, very important circuitry in there, so it had to be heavily armour plated. So I quite like the way the plating looked a bit like a hand grenade to kind of suggest that heavy armour going on. More guts on the outside, as you can see. These were mostly constructed of wood. Yeah, wood, and then obviously all the parts are either metal. Had to have as much metal as possible because I don't like the idea when things scratch that you can actually see what they're made of. So you can probably see here, this part is wood painted black, but then there's an extra layer of silver foil tape on top, so whenever it does scratch we get the colour of metal coming through. Here we go, the barrel gets gradually smaller as it goes along, and then obviously becomes larger. This marking here I've always loved. In UFO mythology, there was a famous UFO that was seen in the 50s, and it had that marking on the side, so I've always liked that, so I just decided to put that on there. Now this black armband on here I made to be in in remembrance of everybody that died on the Death Star. So of course we've got the black armband with the Imperial cog symbol, and the 2 orange stripes denote that it belongs to an officer. The reason the corrugated barrel has so much material on it is because, once again, when we were building these, the only corrugated plastic we could get was bright orange. So of course I didn't want bright orange to start showing through, so I put as much material on it as possible so that when you were handling it, you know, you weren't touching the plastic or the paint. Once again, the strap on the front, it says T21 in Arabesh. I think once again it's Mark IV or Mark II, I'm not sure, maybe it's Mark II. Now I've got this heavy kind of heat-proof paint on there as well, in my mind. That bit's actually leather. And then of course going down to the end of the barrel here. The triangular part of the barrel was completely done with fiberglass and car filler. The main barrel here, this bit here, is a 2-litre Coke bottle. Once again, with fiberglass on the inside of it, all adding to the weight. Now, because the T21 was a Lewis gun and this platform is where the drum magazine sat, I always thought in the Star Wars universe it looked bare. So that's why I added a gun sight, because 99% of the Star Wars guns had gun sights. And then these 2 big heavy tubes running across it, just to kind of take away that bare platform that we see in the film. All the webbing is genuine World War I, which is pretty cool considering the Imperial items in Star Wars were British webbing from World War I and II. A little bit of nylon stuck there, just adds a bit of different texture, but also that was a point that kept getting worn when we were taking these out to troop. So once again, I didn't want the paint showing what it was actually made of as it scratched away. Right, I think it's time to turn this over and see the other side. There we go, there's that Tusken Raider deflection point there on the barrel, which of course has made our barrel slightly off centre. It's not that great a bit of kit, is it really? So yes, as you can see, it's mostly made out of wood, plastic and metal parts, which is why it's so heavy. And you can see the padded area over the corrugated barrel here. This khaki padding was actually a World War II ammunition bandolier. It wasn't a real one, it was a reproduction. But the whole idea there was in World War II, the Germans carried the MG-34 or MG-36, I can't remember, but that's also another gun that the Imperial Stormtroopers carried. And what they would do is sometimes they would fire those by resting them on another soldier's shoulder. So that was the idea here. This extra padding was to so you could rest this over another trooper's shoulder as you were firing it. But I also like the idea that that's what the pauldron was for. With the pauldron you could successfully rest a big heavy blaster over another trooper's shoulder as you were steadying yourself for a shot.